Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Find a Way podcast with Dusty. Hopefully, you're doing well. Part 3 of our skin surgery process update, or process of skin surgery. Gone through the prior 2 parts and wanted to finish up with this part 3 and just go over kind of what the journey was from getting home. I'm trying to remember the very last spot that kind of I ended off on. I know that I talked a lot about that recovery period, about when I first woke up and what I experienced when I woke up. I think really taking it from that moment of me getting home and what that first week, 2 weeks, and the preceding weeks after that looked like, I can almost summarize the first 2 weeks as being I almost want to say the words rough, tough, and what's a good third word? Rough, tough, strenuous. That's probably the best 3 so I say rough. The 2 roughest weeks are going to be the first 2 weeks because you're going through a complete change in that whatever you were used to, how you were sleeping, how you were doing your day-to-day, your gym workout, going to work, all that stuff is going to be completely upended. No matter if you have the surgery like myself or something else, you're going to have to go through the rough. Like, rough is worse than tough. The first 2 weeks are the toughest. It's just completely rough, and it's very, very difficult. And I remember a couple of the YouTube videos that I posted, how I was just sharing how much pain I was in from just the recovery to trying to sleep, to trying to get pain medication. Just the extent of my surgery was rough. So I would say the first 2 weeks, prepare for it to be rough. Prepare for it to be something you've never experienced before, though you may have a idea of what this surgery may have felt like. You know, if you had bariatric surgery as an example, it is a lot different. You went through a major surgery there, but it was almost like you were encouraged to walk and move in a way that, you know, for the bariatric community, if you pass gas, then that's a sign that everything is proceeding the way it needs to, and you can go home. I know that for me, that was kind of a sign of like, okay, everything's working normally. We can start to process you home. With this, it's like I went home same day. With the other one, I was actually in the hospital for 2 or 3 days. So this one was home same day, so you don't really have that level of constant care, constant concern. And yours may be different. You may actually see somebody at the 24-hour... You may see somebody at the 24-hour points, or you may be in the hospital for a few days before you're released. Your situation may be different, but that care and concern, for the most part, if it's an under 4-hour or under 5-hour procedure, you're typically going to go home same day. And so I think that's the rough part, is that you don't have someone with direct medical knowledge to tell you how you're feeling and if that's normal that you're feeling it. They give you a pamphlet, they give you a booklet of, hey, these are the signs, but for the most part, you're kind of almost doing it on your own. And if something comes up and it's concerning enough, then you can say something. But, I mean, really, you're kind of doing it on your own. And so the rough part for me was walking. My lower back was hurting more than my actual incision. I had to crouch, or I couldn't actually stand up straight. And I probably wasn't able to stand up straight for the probably first 6 weeks, just because of the incision. And in order for them to tighten and for it to heal the way it needs to tighten, you need to be in that crouch position, not standing up straight. So again, you're not walking straight. Pain, discomfort, you're on medication. Depending on the medication, you may feel out of it. And so you're going through the rough. And so I would define the first 2 weeks as being the rough. I'd say week 3, 4, and 5 are the tough. That's where it's going to be really tough to maintain your sanity, especially if you're someone that gets to clear to go work out at week 6. you're going to be maybe feeling better at week 4 and then chomping at the bit, and it's going to be tough. But I just don't, just based on my experience, I just don't see how anybody could say, hey, I'm going to be ready at 6 weeks. Even if you have just a hip to hip, there is so much that is going on as far as it takes your sutures, your stitches to actually truly heal only after 2 months. I mean, that's 8 weeks. And so you have something that's not fully healed that you're starting to put strenuous, tension on. And I just don't see the reason why 6 weeks has been known as the time to go back. You've got to give yourself at least 2 months, in my opinion. So, I mean, just get prepared. That's going to be tough. Oh, well, they told me 6 weeks. You should be waiting 8 weeks. I know I'm waiting 8 weeks before any kind of formal exercise, running, jump roping. I'm waiting for the clearance from my doctor. But no abdominal crunches, anything like that for probably 3 months, if not more. And so that's the tough part is, I'd say week 3, you kind of get out of the rough of it being the worst. Week 3 is kind of your head's clearing a little bit, and your head's clearing, but then now you're kind of going through that waiting game of healing. And so 3, 4, and 5 for skin surgery for me was just, it was tough. It was just tough. The strenuous part that I would say, and I'll probably go back to the tough part. I don't think I spoke enough on that, but the strenuous part is you feel as best that you've felt in the past 4 or 5 weeks, and you're eager to get back to your routine, but you're not able to. And so because you're not able to get back to what you're typically used to on a Monday through Friday basis, it's going to be very strenuous to stay patient, to stay with a level head. I think more of the physical, mental side of things gets tough probably the first, say, week 1, week 2, week 3. It's probably the toughest. I think probably the beginning of week 4 is where you start getting into the, okay, this is taking a toll mentally, so I need to get prepared that this, it's almost like you're going to go through the rough, tough, and strenuous in 2 different ways, one through the physical and then one through separately the mental. And so on the mental side, it may be a different starting point, but I felt like on my own particular journey, my recovery, I'm at week 7 right now. The beginning of week 6 for me is when everything mentally started, okay, this is considerably pretty tough to manage. That I had in my mind that 6 weeks I'd be ready to go, and how I'm feeling, how my outlook is, how my overall just condition is not ready to get back to how I was. And mind you, for the past 8 years, I've been working 5 or 6 days a week. Longest break I've ever taken is a week. And now I'm approaching 6 weeks, and I haven't worked out at all. I've just gone for walks. And walking is, you can work out walking, but the running, the jump roping, the cardio, the Stairmaster, the sprints, the things that I've been used to doing for 5 or 6 days a week for 8 years. Now 6 weeks, getting to the point where I haven't done that. I'm now approaching week 7 for myself. It's been 7 weeks since I've done any kind of formal workout. And mind you, I've only skipped in the past 8 years a week. And so that's where the mental walls start kind of, okay, am I ever going to get through this? Is this ever going to be done? I've got a stitch abscess. And that's actually part of the strenuous, and I'll go briefly into that. So everything was essentially stitched with an internal dissolvable stitch that I didn't see. I saw a few of them around my belly button poke out, and I could actually feel the clear stitches. I got those clipped with a nail clipper at skin level. But essentially you had the stitch, but then over it they had glue that was kind of reinforcing the stitch that was already done. And so I'm only seeing dried blood that has come to the surface, that glue has been dried over, and so I don't really see something healed underneath until I start noticing that the glue is peeling off in a certain area. So the glue's coming off pretty easily. I'm taking it off, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, the skin has adhered. And that was probably about the first, I'd say at day 10 is when I started noticing some of the glue starting to dissolve, me being able to remove some of the glue and actually seeing it healed. But I didn't actually fully remove all of it until, I'd say, week 2 was when I actually, for the most part, had 75, if not 80% of the glue taken off and was comfortable with that area. The rest of it, if I was even questioning that it was still healing, I didn't touch it. I didn't pick at it, didn't do anything, just giving it the best environment to heal. Okay, so now I'm into week 3.5. Slowly, I'd say 3.5. All the glue with the dried up like scab blood that was essentially gone, 95% of it gone. Well, there's a lower portion below my belly button that is essentially the connection point between the vertical incision and the horizontal incision. That vertical to connection horizontal just was still scabbed, and it was still there. Well, I think I put on the wrong put on the wrong bandage to where the scab got moist. It stuck to the bandage itself, and so when I took it off, I started noticing that it lifted the scab a little bit. And underneath, I'm noticing this white kind of membrane mucus, and I'm losing it. Because I'm like, am I open? Can you put a finger through there and like see my intestines? And you can ask my wife. I've had a little bit more anxiety this go around of a life event and really anything else in life, and so it's been quite rough. But I self-preservation is really huge for me, and so what's funny is that self-preservation was huge, or is huge for me. Yet I let myself get to 534 pounds thinking that wasn't life, like shortening. The things that we do as humans. But go to the doctor, and essentially it's a stitch abscess. I have an exposed black stitch that needs to be taken out by the doctor, and it's an area that's very common for it to not properly adhere, because you're looking at 3 pieces of skin, the sides that were cut in the middle, and then the one below at the bottom. They're all trying to stitch together. And so their stitching together is actually one of the more difficult spots, and it's something that is very common. So I had reached out virtually to the doctor. I had gone a televisit. I had sent them pictures. I had done a bunch of different things to just say, hey, am I in trouble? Are my intestines going to be coming out here? And because it was a very common spot, the doctor wasn't too concerned. They wanted to know what the actual wound looked like. And so the big things, does it smell? Is it overly red? It's going to be red because obviously it's healing, but is it blisteringly red? And do you have a fever, or are you experiencing any kind of fever or cold symptoms? Those were the things, because the body would essentially tell you that, hey, something's going on. I didn't have any of those. But she essentially, at the visit, looked at everything else, but then started wiping down everything, including the actual incision hole where the mucous membrane was. She started wiping it and digging into it, and it drove me up the wall, especially with the feeling of anxiety that I was already having, that I'm going to be spilling out everywhere. She just was like casual, picking, doing this, doing that. And she calmed some nerves. She said, no, it's not connected. Stitch abscess isn't something to where you're exposed internally and you're just going to bleed out everywhere. She pretty much said that this is a very difficult spot to heal, and that underneath the skin's healed. It's just the top adherence of the stitch has not healed. And so because of that, now you need to care for it. And essentially she's having me put gauze with Neosporin or this Neosporin type of medication on top of it. And it's almost like Vaseline. It's where they put a bandage over it and you change it twice a day. Now my thoughts are, I've always been told that you need to dry out the wound and that's where the scab's going to generate. With a stitch abscess, it's actually been completely different. They're recommending Vaseline, recommending Vaseline type like a Neosporin. I've always heard, don't cover, let the natural air dry it out so it could heal. Well, with the stitch abscess, because it's like a divot, they've actually recommended to constantly keep it moist, especially with Neosporin or something else, and constantly have it covered, and that it's going to heal from the inside out. And that inside out is essentially going to get you to a point. So I'm at week 7 and it's still not closed. So I've been dealing with I'm now at week 7 and it was out at about week 4 that I met with her. So I've been dealing with this for 2.5 weeks of this not closing completely. And in fact, where I typically would wear my shorts, that belt level, I think is going to be right where the incision is. Well, I haven't been able to put it there. It's had to be lower than that. The compression midsection, I've only kept it to a certain area because I don't want to put anything above it because I still have my white compression garment. So it's just been, the strenuous is just like, man, it's been 7 weeks and we're still doing this. Going back, and I talked briefly, I was going to go back to the tough part. There's going to be things, the mistakes that you're probably going to make that you don't expect. I didn't expect Band-Aids would give me a reaction, any kind of adhesion material would give me a reaction on my skin. I'm thinking because that area of my skin, I'm talking about on the sides of my, belly button, I started getting blisters when I was taking off the Band-Aids or the adhesion bandages. Like, what in the world? I've never taken off a Band-Aid and it have a blister. Well, the issue was my skin there. I had mentioned earlier that I was tightening. My skin was tightening. I was crouching. The reason I was crouching is because my skin was very tight from the incision. Well, because of that, the skin's expanding. The stretch marks are coming forth. That's where stretch marks are typically a little bit more inflamed. And because of that, I think that's where I experienced probably a majority of the issue with that, is that I was stretching, my skin was stretching, while a Band-Aid was keeping it in its spot. And so a blister developed. So all of a sudden now you're going to think, okay, I'm out of it, first 2 weeks. And then some little things are going to come up where it's just like, dude, this is tough. Like I can get through, I can hurt my, I'm trying to think of, I can scrape my knee. 2 weeks after you scrape your knee, you're going to be in good shape to where you're going to be doing what you're normally doing. This is one of those things where, okay, I've gone through the rough for 2 weeks. Man, this is tough. Like, I still got to grind this out. And the strenuous is supposed to be a little bit more extreme. And so a strenuous is, I'm 7 weeks in and I'm not back to who I was. I can't work out the way I want to. It's like all the work I did for 8 years, is that going to be lost in these 7 to 8 weeks? If I'm going to have to wait 3 months? One thing my surgeon said when I was freaked out. I was like, you literally cut me open. You know what I look like inside. Is that just, that's wild. She said, well, you've got very nice muscle structure in your abdominal walls. Your abdominal area is very well structured and has a lot of muscle built. I was actually very, very surprised that you were hiding that underneath. And I got a little excited. I was like, well, all the work is paying off. Someone's finally recognized it. Well, I'm 7 weeks in. Maybe have to be a total of 3 months before I get back into any abdominal work. And it's like, well, is all that work that I've done for 8 years going to be lost? And I know muscle memory's there, but it's like all the things that I worked for, I was like, what was the point? I mean, the past 6 months, anything that I did, to build any kind of anything, it's like, well, it's just kind of gone all astray. And so the strenuous is the longer that I wait, or the longer that I have to wait to work out, the more work I'm going to have to do to get what I had back. And even more than that, I've been keeping myself at this like level playing field fitness wise. I'm able to run a long distance without being out of breath. I've got a very low heart rate, resting heart rate. But body fat percentage, I've been up probably 5% than my lowest. So about 17-18% body fat percentage after the skin. Well, I'm probably now with all that sitting in the 20s in body fat percentage, and I want to get back to 12%. I want to get back to 10%. And if I have a goal of getting to 10%, which I think my relative lowest on my journey was 9.2% body fat percentage. So if I want to get back down from my common 12 and get it down to 10, I've got a lot of work ahead of me. And the longer that I wait, the more work that's coming ahead. And so that's where it gets a little overwhelming. That's where the strenuous part for me comes in, is that I'm going to have to wait to get into the best shape of my life. So I say a couple things to consider as well. You know, I'm in week 7. I might have a different outlook on week 9. Doctor says I got to wait 3 months. I may be in a very different mental spot come month 3. I just don't know where I'll be at the 3-month mark. But I know that at week 7, I can really define the 3 stages are the rough, the tough, and then the strenuous. Hopefully that rhymes for you. But those 3 are probably the best way to summarize and group. Again, it's going to be different. Your recovery window and your recovery timeline is going to be different. But for myself, the 3 really kind of help define where mentally and physically I am in the now 7 weeks in. And so getting prepared for what's coming ahead, maybe continue to be strenuous, but it may be something else. But it's just crouching. I mean, one of the tough stages is constantly getting up and having to crouch. I mean, it takes 6 weeks to stand straight up, so it's like for a month and a half, I'm, walking in public, doing everything that I normally do. I'm not going out every day. I'm not doing this or doing that, but I go out and go to the market, go grocery shopping. I've got this little crouch to me, and it's almost like, am I going to be crouched like this for this long? Depending on your work schedule, you might have to go back to a physically demanding job. If you have a desk job, that might be a little bit easier. But thankfully, I've been off of work and will be out of work for the next week. I actually go back next week. And so I'm grateful that I'm able to allow my stitch abscess to heal because I need that. But I mean, if you have to go back after 2 weeks, your care, everything's going to be different. I would say since week 6, I have been overtly tired. I'd say more tired than normal, meaning I wake up tired, I wake up depleted just because I'm recovering, but I would say exceptionally so since week 6, to where I am lethargic. And I mean, a couple times last week, if not a few times, I did not go out for my morning walk. I had to try to muster up something at the later part of the day just because I just didn't feel like doing anything. I just didn't have the energy, and I try to do what I can around the house to help. We have 2 kids, and they're absolutely 2 kids that are under 4 that live up to the nature of you can never have anything clean, because they'll just terrorize and make a mess, and then you're right back to, okay, we got to clean this up. And so I'm usually there I've got a little grabber, those little tongue grabbers. You press it with your hand and it kind of has that little claw feature. I've got 3 or 4 around the house, and so what's been nice is that the 3 or 4 items that I have, I just constantly picking things up, and so I'm helping as much as I can to maintain the household. I just haven't been able to do that, and I feel bad because it's like stressful sometimes, where it's like, the house that we want to keep clean and have in good shape is just like, oh well, that room's gone. It's going to take a little bit to get that room in order. That's where the strenuous side of things, that like, I'm so worn out, I'm so beat, that some of the rooms in the house have to go astray just because I'm not able to do my part in helping keep things organized. And so this entire episode of the process, I've always been huge on the preparatory, mentally. Like, you can prep yourself physically, obviously. Like, you think about a marathon, you're gonna marathon train for months, so it's going to prepare you for that physical feat of going on a marathon. I think a lot of my podcast is that preparation of mentally, and so a lot of this has sounded very gloom. There's a lot of bright things, and just highlighting some of the bright things, being able to see my belly button for the first time, having the glare or appearance of what potentially my midsection will look like, being able to see my abdominal area, my abs, without actually having to move the skin. There's a lot of great things about this. I just want to prepare you mentally that if you're going to have skin surgery, you're going to have the rough, you're going to have the tough, and you're going to have the strenuous. And you could probably mirror that to marathon training, Ironman training, whatever you're training for. The rough, the tough, and the strenuous are coming. And so if you can prepare for it mentally by hearing from experience and what I'm experiencing, I'm hoping it helps. Again, I'm only into week 7. Not fully back in the swing of working out. Probably won't be until so I'm thinking 2 weeks until I can actually try to go for a run, try to go for a jog, go on a bike ride, go on the Stairmaster, use the elliptical. I'm thinking 2 weeks. Now, thinking, meaning the doctor's going to sign me off on lifting over 50 pounds on my appointment next week. And so, my thought is, okay, she signs me off, I'm getting right back in the swing of things. It's less about what the doctor signs off on and more how I feel and how ready and what the condition is. If the doctor says, hey, it's great, go after it, and I get hurt, but the doctor said, okay, you've got to make sure that you're in a good position to do it. And if you don't feel ready, if you're not in the condition to, you've got to give the body time, enough time to get where it needs to go. So there it is, the rough, the tough, the strenuous. Prepare for it mentally. Any specific questions, I'll put a Q&A on this particular episode. If there's anything specific, maybe I can do a skin surgery process part 4, and it just answers specifically questions, preparatory, anything in regards to the skin surgery process. One thing that we can all do is check out my YouTube channel. I've created a playlist that is strictly videos of what I made before, during, and after, but also saved stories on my Instagram profile where it has my daily updates of when I'm typically standing in the car and I'm going over the particular day update, what the experience is, what to prepare for. So that's all available on these saved stories, but I've put a playlist of my Q&As, my videos, my updates all in one place on YouTube. It's on my YouTube playlist. And so if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube. Dusty Lost 300 Pounds should be pretty easy to find. But we'll get back to our regularly scheduled episodes of talking about the journey. I've got plenty to talk about. because a lot of what this skin surgery recovery has been is mirrored a lot of what the process of where my journey is, and my nutrition has had to change because I'm not working out. So it's like, hey, am I going to gain all my weight back? Am I going to gain a bunch of weight back because I haven't been working out? So we got some stuff to talk about. So I'll try to get on my walks like I normally have, and then shoot out a couple episodes this week. And that's it. That's all. My friends, thanks for tuning in for part 3 of the skin surgery process. Hopefully that helped. Again, drop a comment down below if there's a specific question I can answer. I'll do a future episode of skin surgery process, maybe even update at month 3 on where I'm at, and go over some of those answers, and then talk about what's coming ahead. My goal, I'll end with this, my goal would match up with the video that I posted in early 2024, that my goal was to go under 4 hours. Well, I did 2 marathons in 2 weeks last year, one at 4 hours and 30 minutes and one at 4 hours and 20 minutes. Well, the goal is before the end of the year is to get a sub 4 hour marathon. And if I do it in December, I just might have enough time to train to get to the sub 4. So see if we can do it. If we can't, it's okay. Hopefully there's a whole other year and a year after that we can go after it, but it'd be nice to try to tackle it before the end of 2024. If it is the case, then it would be the St. Jude Marathon in Memphis, Tennessee. So it'd be in the same state, which would be nice, but we'll see what comes ahead. But thanks for tuning into this episode, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Take care.